This tutorial shows the different settings of the WMO messages for climate, pilot and altitude. To open the WMO message settings, please click on Options in the upper left corner. Then open the message settings and then the WMO message settings. The pilot messages can now be selected on the right-hand side. There are general settings and mandatory levels for PPBB and PPDD. The WMO regulations define two types of calculation, so you can choose between the calculation base pressure and altitude. The mandatory levels for the PPBB and PPDD messages can also be adjusted. By opening the mandatory levels, the different values can be viewed. To only display the above defined mandatory levels in the messages, activate the checkbox. To adjust the settings for the CLIMAT messages, open the menu on the right side. Here different settings could be made for the time of the observation, depending on how many flights are launched per day. This time will be coded in the CLIMAT message. To display the upper air header in the messages, this checkbox needs to be activated. Click Altitude Limits on the right side to configure the respective settings. These are structured in three groups: General Settings, Temp Messages, and Pilot Messages. In the general settings you can select whether the limits are to be set by altitude or pressure. For the recalculation of the messages Part A, B and C, D after the balloon burst, activate both checkboxes. This is a recommended setting, otherwise an incomplete message may occur. Under Temp Messages, the required altitude or pressure can be defined for the four parts. The same settings can also be made in the Pilot Messages section. This was the tutorial for configuring the WMO messages for the pilot messages, the CLIMAT messages and the altitude limits.